Okay, so to recap this video, the 2 rules that I made for myself is number 1, a protein-rich meal within 30 minutes of waking up, and number 2, stop eating roughly 3 hours before bed. One of the best ways to start the day is by waking up before your alarm clock, naturally feeling well rested and ready to take on the day. On the other side of the coin, ending the night by being relaxed and literally falling into a deep slumber within minutes of your head hitting the pillow is one of the best ways to end the night. And how can we get closer to that result? How can we improve our sleep-wake cycles? There are many different ways, yes, but there are 2 simple things, 2 simple changes, 2 rules that I've created for myself in my meal timing that significantly influence this, and I invite you to try them out. We're gonna cover them in this video. If you've noticed in my videos, I'm always wearing this ring, and it's not just for aesthetic, it's called an Oura ring. If you haven't heard of it, you can think of it like a Fitbit on steroids, but it's specifically designed to track and give you comprehensive data on your sleep and recovery and overall well-being. Now, the reason I really like this ring is that it gives you your actual sleep cycles, your REM sleep, your deep sleep, as well as your light sleep, and just overall your sleep latency, your optimal sleep schedule and timing, what time you should be going to bed based off many different things. It's a really cool thing. But the reason I bring this up is because I've used this to track different meal timing templates that I've implemented for myself over the last almost year-long experiment. And what I have come across, or what I've been doing for these last few months, has had the most improvement. So we all have what's called a chronotype, and it's genetic, it's hardwired into our DNA, and our chronotype falls a lot in line with our circadian clock or our sleep-wake cycles. Our chronotype determines whether we are naturally a morning person or a night owl or a mid-morning person, and all those things. So if you're someone who has tried to force yourself to wake up at, let's say, 5 a.m., but always found it difficult, that's not your fault. It's not a discipline problem or any shit like that. It's genetically, you are not a morning person. So chronotype is a pretty recent discovery in circadian biology and the study of it, but what people are noticing is that it's not an end-all be-all. Our chronotype, or our natural circadian rhythm and our natural sleep-wake cycles, actually use what we're going to call environmental cues. They use different signals from the world around us to help us adapt to what we're actually doing versus what our DNA wants us to do. So if you're naturally an early morning person, let's say naturally you wake up at 7 a.m., but you want to learn how to wake up at 5 a.m., you can do that by modifying your environmental cues, because your body is going to use those signals to adapt to what you're actually doing versus what it wants you to do, like I just said. So what are some different environmental cues that we can use to our advantage to manipulate our sleep and wake cycles? Number 1, and the most important one, is light. I've talked about that on my channel. If you're not blocking blue light, if you got blue light blasting at you all throughout the night, you're gonna sleep like shit, and that's gonna do some long-term disruption. That's for a separate video. In this video, we're gonna talk about food, okay? That's the second one. And then the third one is movement, which again is for a separate video. To give you some context into my experiments and what I've actually tried, last year in October of 2018, I had a schedule that had me waking up at 4:30 a.m. Now, naturally, based off my chronotype, I am an early morning person, usually around 6, 7 a.m. So to wake up, even though I have that advantage, to wake up at 4:30 a.m. is still a challenge, and I have to adapt to it, and I have to put in the work to make myself, get used to that schedule. I wanted to use the 3 big circadian cues to my advantage. I got myself a light box, and I started eating when I wake up. Now, to be honest, I don't like to eat as soon as I wake up. So what I was doing was adding protein powder to my tea and drinking that when I wake up. So I was kind of hacking the system. I wasn't actually chewing, but I was consuming calories and protein when I woke up. Now, I did find this to be to give me some good result, and it worked pretty well for a few months. But what I decided to start experimenting with a few months ago is actually eating food as soon as I wake up. And holy fucking shit, the significant influence that has had on how I wake up and how I go to bed is amazing. Simply actually eating food versus drinking some calories. So it's made a big difference. My sleep-wake cycles are on point. I fall asleep incredibly easy, and I get great averages with my deep sleep as well as my REM sleep. I get between 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, and my readiness scores, okay, which the Oura Ring gives you each morning. It's called your readiness score. It's basically Are you recovered? Did you sleep well? And many other factors. Before I was eating actual food every morning, my readiness score was on average about 82. Ever since I started implementing these 2 rules that I'm going to share with you, my readiness score has gone up to 90 almost every single day. 91s, 92s, 93s, 90s. It's amazing, and I feel it in my well-being. So there were only 2 simple changes that I made in my routine that gave me those numbers and that really fuck the data. How I feel is amazing. So those 2 changes, or what I call rules, are as follows. Number 1, a protein-rich meal within 30 minutes of waking up. Number 2, stop eating roughly 3 hours before you go to bed. Now, I invite you to try these for a few weeks in your life, okay? And notice, truly, any changes in your sleep, how you're waking up, how fast or slow you're going to bed, your overall energy levels, and I promise you that if you stay consistent with it, you will see some differences, because this is a great way to modify your circadian rhythm. Also notice how I call these rules. I abide by them as so. It's non-negotiable, especially now that I can feel the ROI for doing this. No joke, it's made such a very powerful result in my life. So, why protein in the morning? I don't know why exactly, but it just really works. It can be low carb, high fat, low carb. Doesn't matter the other macros really. It just matters that it's something that you like and that it's relatively high in protein for you. So like I said, I don't know why protein works very well for this, but if you dig online, a lot of people recommend it, these different health gurus, even though there's no actual hard data behind it. For me and for many others, it just simply worked. Complete disclaimer, I am not a doctor, a nutritionist, a dietitian, or a physician of any sort. I'm simply showing what has worked very well for me through my experimentation. So before making any changes to your diet, or anything that I recommend in this video, please consult with yours, do your own research, and use your best judgment. Disclaimer for the video. There we go. Let's get right back into it. Now, there are some other benefits to having it be high in protein as well, though. For example, protein is one of the more satiating macronutrients, so it keeps you full longer. It's also great to start off the day It's also great to kick off muscle protein synthesis at the start of the day as well. So if you're resistance training or looking to maintain your muscle mass and you're dieting or you're bulking, whatever, you know how important that is, and everyone should be resistance training to some degree, at least in my opinion. Anyway, that's side benefits of having protein in the morning, and I personally aim for 25 to 40 grams of protein with this early morning meal, but play around with it, find what works for you based off your macro needs and on how you feel. Now, to dig a little bit further into this, I am a creature of habit, so I cycle between 2 meals that I absolutely love and enjoy eating. When I first started doing this a few months ago, it was oatmeal every morning, protein oatmeal. It's about 80 grams of oats, scoop of protein powder, a little bit of egg white, some stevia. It's really fucking good. It's the best recipe ever. It makes the thickest, creamiest bowl of oatmeal that I've ever tried, and I make this the night before, okay? It takes me 6 minutes to make it, put it in my fridge, so when I get to the kitchen in the morning, it's there waiting for me. See, this is key. You got to make it sustainable. So if you can make your meals the night before for that morning meal, do it, because it's going to help a lot. You don't want to have to cook and do a bunch of shit in the morning when you're still kind of half asleep. So that yields me roughly 25 to 35 grams of protein, depending on how I make it. The second option that I love having, and I posted about it on Instagram not too long ago, is a giant bowl, literally 500 grams worth of non-fat Greek yogurt. I drizzle some raw Manuka honey on there, along with some bee pollen, sometimes some Ceylon cinnamon, maybe a little stevia, something like that. Absolutely delicious, and it yields me way more protein than the former at around 40 grams. So that's rule number 1, a protein-rich meal within 30 minutes of waking up. After doing this for a couple weeks, you'll start to notice that maybe you're waking up before your alarm clock feeling just a little bit better, or maybe you're going to sleep a little bit easier. Really keep track of any changes that you noticed. Now, I know that some people don't like eating that early in the morning. That was me. That's why when I first started with this circadian meal timing experiment almost a year ago, I was doing protein powder in the tea because I didn't want to eat and chew food in the morning. I just didn't want to do it. I don't like it. Now I like it because I see the results that it's given me. So as someone who did not like eating breakfast in the morning, trust me, this shit fucking works. Give it a shot. That's why you got to make it something that you like, okay? And with the timing, I'm usually chewing my meal within 7 to 10 minutes of waking up. Like, I get right to it. I got my decaf coffee there, my meal waiting for me. But you can play around with the time. As I said, ideally within 30 minutes of rising. Within 30 minutes upon rising. and I personally would not wait over an hour to get this meal in. In addition to that, rule number 2 that I made for myself is stop eating roughly 3 hours before bed. Many people have reported this to help their sleep, myself included. This has been a key role in this as well. Not eating a big meal too close to bed is beneficial for multiple reasons, and as always, I have notes to kind of keep me on track here, so excuse me for looking off the camera. But one of which is that researchers have discovered that increasing levels of the sleep hormone melatonin, which is way more than just a sleep hormone, reduces the ability of insulin-producing cells in the pancreas to actually produce insulin. So how that applies here is, if you look at the study of melatonin, of the interactions and the relationship between melatonin and insulin, it's actually quite interesting. There have been studies in diabetic rat models that have revealed an inverse relationship. So an increase in melatonin levels will downregulate insulin secretion and vice versa, okay? So your body naturally wants to downregulate insulin at night because it's increasing melatonin due to your circadian rhythm. It knows you're going to bed, it knows it's bedtime, it's secreting melatonin, so insulin is going to be downregulated. So maybe we're confusing our bodies by having a big meal before bed, which is signaling to our body to upregulate insulin because you have a big insulinogenic meal, when really it didn't plan on doing that at this time of day. It could just be looked at as confusing for our biology. So how does that apply practically, right? What does that actually mean for you and me? If you have a big meal too close to bed, your blood glucose is going to go up per usual, just as it normally does. But since your body knows that you'll be going to sleep soon because of our biological clocks, melatonin is being secreted. So the pancreas may not release the appropriate amount of insulin for the amount of glucose in your blood. Therefore, when you're going to bed, you have an elevated level of blood glucose for longer. So as you're going to bed, if you have elevated blood glucose, that can actually negatively impact your sleep. Having high or too low blood glucose levels when you go to bed can make it difficult to achieve an optimal night's rest by making people feel hot, irritable, and unsettled, and that is not a comfortable way to fall asleep. The melatonin-insulin relationship may also play a role in why eating when you wake up can help keep us in sync with our circadian rhythm and our biological clocks, because in the morning, if you're eating, insulin is going up. So the inverse is that melatonin is going down, which naturally happens in the morning as well. Melatonin goes down because it knows you're going to be waking up soon. So you're just kind of validating and keeping further in sync with your natural biological clocks, which makes sense. So for myself personally, I go to bed any time between 9 and 10, usually around 9:30. So since I go to bed at that time, I have my last meal. I make sure to have my last meal by 6 p.m. After that, I just simply don't eat. It's early, or it's a time-restricted feeding, right? Time-restricted eating, Rhonda Patrick. A lot of people talk about it. Now, if I didn't plan appropriately and I missed dinner by that time, I personally will just skip dinner or have something really light, bowl of Greek yogurt or something like that, a small bowl. You don't have to skip dinner if you don't plan your timing appropriately, but that's just what I do, just to let you know. Now, if I am gearing up to hit the bed and go to sleep and I'm finding that I'm getting hunger pains and that I'm actually genuinely hungry, what I will do is make myself a small concoction of a tablespoon of raw honey and a tablespoon of collagen protein. I'll just kind of mix that up into like a gooey ball, and I eat that. There are some research to show that having glycine, which is found in good amounts in collagen, can help with falling asleep and deep sleep. Raw honey, a lot of people like before bed as well, and it just tastes damn good. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. If you found any value in this video whatsoever, please give it a thumbs up. Your support really means a lot and it does help the channel. But if you didn't like it, honestly, then give me a thumbs down. But at least in a comment, let me know why you give it a thumbs down, so that way I can improve my content. If you're this far into the video and you want to subscribe, go ahead and hit that button. Any questions, comments, whatever, leave them down below. I read every single one and I will more than likely get back to you if you have any questions. And thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your week.